दोस्तों साथियों आपको स्वागत करते हैं जलसा फीजी रेडियो पे। मैं हूं प्रोग्राम डायरेक्टर विनेश और ये हमारा बिजनेस सीरीज़ है। ऐसा आप हमारे बैकग्राउंड में देख सकते हो। दिस इज जलसा बिजनेस वर्ल्ड सीरीज 006 and this time we are going to talk with our guests Richard Parkin of Hamilton Hindin Greene and Anshul Gupta from Harcourts. So basically as our series says, it's to do with business, but at the same time we are trying to get the business people a bit better. Either they are running the business themselves or they are very much associated with businesses, and that's our theme, and that's what we are trying to bring to you. At the same time, we are trying to connect with them, get to know them a bit better, and break through the wall in between, so that people like you, if you are watching and if you want to approach them, so that it's a bit easy for you to approach, at the same time understand how they work, what the process is, so there's a bit of appreciation from both sides. This session, as you would have noticed, that I'm mostly speaking in English, and that is because we've got Richard Parkin, and we definitely want him to understand each word we are saying today. So thank you, Richard, for taking your time and coming with us again. I mean, you've been with us many times. We have done a few interviews last year. I'm not sure about 2025, but thank you for coming back. You look much fresher, so I'm sure 2025 is
it's keeping me busy.
Yeah, which is good. That's what we want. At the same time, Anshul, he's one of our good sponsors, and he has been to our studio, to our business series before, and he has been very good at keeping us updated with the market. And once again, today we are expecting similar thing for him, but at the same time, we try to shift a bit away from the usual topics of businesses, and this time, as my poster suggests, we are talking about a theme that I have in my mind. How that's going to go with these two guests, time will tell. So that's something we will find out as we go along with our show. Apologies from Rohit Sajadeva, mortgage advisor. He couldn't come to today's meeting, but he will try to catch up with future series. So let's get it all started. So Richard, I'll go to you first. So if you could introduce yourself to our viewers,
yes,
who could be like watching from Christchurch, India, or any other place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we will start with the questions.
Of course. Well, I'm Richard Parkin. I'm a financial advisor and share broker from Hamilton Hindin Greene. We're a stockbroking company here in Christchurch, New Zealand. Company's been around for 125 years this year, so we've got our way through quite a few big events over the course of history. I've been living in Christchurch now for just coming up for 5 years. I did live here previously for a couple of years, about 20 years ago. So that's basically me. I've been involved in investments for about 30 years now. So I've seen some exciting things in that time. COVID, the pandemic, 9/11, all kinds of dramatic historical events. And it's always quite interesting, and no 2 days are the same. And it's something I very much enjoy doing.
Thank you, Richard. And Anshul, so I mean, you've been doing this many times with me, so you know the drill.
Yes, hi guys, Anshul from Harcourts Homewood. As you know, I'm your friendly and local real estate advisor. We have helped this year more than 18 families to secure their family home. So yes, so doing this for almost 5 years, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me.
Thank you, Anshul. And going back to Richard, so let's start with the questions. I think the first one we would like from you is an update, what's happening to the share market. Is New Zealand kind of doing good, or is Donald Trump still upsetting us?
Donald Trump's quite a divisive character, as we know, and the market did start the year fairly well. First few weeks looked quite promising. When Trump came in and started talking about tariffs, that worried the market, because one thing the market doesn't like is uncertainty. The market can deal with all kinds of problems as long as it knows what they are. With Trump, we didn't know what was going to happen next, and that created some uncertainty. Today is what America refer to as Liberation Day, where they've put lots of tariffs on different countries. We in New Zealand haven't been affected too badly. I don't think it will affect us too much. Countries that suffered the most, obviously China, as we knew. The European Union's been hit, and surprisingly Vietnam. For some reason. He's really got it in for the Vietnamese at the moment for some reason. But at least we now know what the tariffs are, and we've got a baseline that we can work with. But as we all know, he could change his mind tomorrow, and someone's tariffs could suddenly be dropped or doubled. We just don't know. But at least we've got a better idea now of where we stand. As for the markets, New Zealand was up very slightly over the day. Australia was down a little bit. We've yet to see what's going to happen when America opens, but the future suggests it's going to be dropping 3 or 4% overnight. But yeah, we kind of have a better, clearer idea of where we stand now.
I see. And going to Anshul, if we could have a similar update, I know every time you come in, you update us with the market. It does help our viewers and listeners because, of course, everybody's waiting for the right time to strike.
Yeah.
So I think it does help us. And at the same time, I heard in the news that there was a bit of development and a few houses came to the market.
Yes, so the March was I would say the busiest months of 2024 2025. In Christchurch itself, there were around 350 property got sold, and at the same time, there's around 2,300 properties on the market.
Wow.
So there's a good choices for the buyers in the market at the moment. So I think the buyers are still waiting to drop the interest a little bit further, and there are buyers in the market, but I think they're not taking a wise decision and not putting offers. So my suggestion to those people is, hey, look, interest rate can drop, but the prices of the properties are on the rise now. So this is a great time. Comes winter is always a great time. The motivated sellers are on the market. So if you are in the market, I think the winter is a great time because, hey, look, you can get a good buy in winter.
Demand is out there because there's a lot of flats being built.
Yeah,
so
these townhouses in
built.
Linwood itself, Linwood Phillipstown, I think there is more than 300 townhouses on the market. In my office itself, we have Richard Dawson. He sold around 30 townhouses just in March itself. So there is a lot of townhouses, and I think there's a demand as well because investors, for 500, what can you buy in Christchurch? And they're not much. So what they're doing is they're buying 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, a car garage. You can rent them for $530 a week. So it's like 5% yield. So there's a lot happening on the market.
And another thing as well, something that reflects on our side, is there are a number of older people that want to move to a retirement village, but they're just waiting for the property prices to move up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, if say they were thinking of selling their house for $1 million,
exactly,
but it's only worth 900,
Yes.
they're waiting until it comes up to the figure they want. And once the market comes up a little bit, I think a number of older people will be making that move, selling their property so they can move to the retirement villages. So I think that's not far away now.
Even on that topic, Richard, you know that I'm dealing with a retired couple. I'm selling their home in Waimari Beach. Property worth around 980 something, and they're looking to go to the retirement village. What they told me that they went to the retirement village 3 months ago. The cost of the villa was 800, and in just 45 days,
it's gone.
It's 980, 990.
Yeah.
And then he went to the manager of the villa. He said, "Well, price of your retirement home have gone actually crazy rather than my property." And the answer of the manager of retirement village was, "Well, you are in the business of real estate, and we are in the business of lifestyle."
Yeah.
So huge increment in the rates for retirement villages.
And there's a lot of retirement villages being built because
Yes.
the demographics of New Zealand, everyone's getting older.
Yes.
The demand for later life care is only
As
going
there.
one way.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting market.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about lifestyle, I think there's another interesting topic which we might want to get Anshul back on someday, plus maybe a lawyer, someone to just explain the legalities about it, because if people jump in and without the actual understanding, then they might not know what they are entering into. And at the same time, I mean, we've got Hamilton, Hindin, Greene over here who usually talks about kind of how to invest your amount at what you have. And I guess are you still thinking of people spreading their kind of investments, or are you more focused on shares?
People will spread their investments. I mean, any sensible financial advisor will tell you shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket. So a rental property and some shares and some cash and maybe a classic car. Who knows? You know, spread your money around a little bit. Don't put everything into just one thing, because you could put everything into property. Of course, as we know, property markets price crash or market dries up and suddenly people need the money, but they can't sell that property, so they can't liberate that cash. Same thing with the share market. You know, you can buy, it can go right up, it can go right down for reasons that you weren't expecting. But at least I suppose the advantage with shares is that if you did need the money back, you could sell those shares quite quickly. The only thing is, of course, you won't get perhaps not get what you paid for. So they're a little bit more liquid, but same risks.
Yeah, same risk with the real estate.
Yeah, I mean,
but there can be a long process if you're going to sell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to sell a house
Yes.
in a bad market, it
Yeah.
could be months.
Yes,
With
that's
shares, it's still only a couple
You
of
can
days.
sell it in a
but,
couple of days.
Yeah.
And with the investments in shares as well, if you are investing with some sort of company which is kind of going through liquidation or something, how
Yeah.
easy it is to salvage your money, or is it kind of a done deal kind of thing and you have to just grab whatever you can?
If the company is going under, definite, and you know that for sure, and it's no prospect of being bought out by somebody else, then yeah, that if you can get anything out, it's usually better to do that. When a company does get into trouble, depending on the sort of company it is, if it's a very important company, like I would say a bank, then someone will undoubtedly step in and save the day. Your shares may become worthless, but the bank will survive. But yeah, I mean that doesn't happen that often. But when a company does get into trouble, then it's usually quite well known, and we tend to try and
I see.
exit if we can. Yeah.
I see. And well, let's talk about our topic then. So as you can see on my poster, so this is kind of a try to pick up on a bit of a bold this time, and of course our motive is straight talk with professionals. So we have got professional, and I've got a bold topic as well. So it's kind of a warfare. So as you can see, it's but we don't have to go there. What I'm trying to ask over here is, how much does war affect your business? For example, there's a war going on between, say, Russia and Ukraine at the moment, and we think it's supposed to kind of calm down, but still it's a bit uncertain. So does it, definitely should affect your world?
It has a huge effect, because you think that Russia and Ukraine are a long way away. Neither of them are particularly big stock markets, but Russia and Ukraine, for example, are both very, very big suppliers of wheat. So suddenly the wheat supply in the world is reduced quite dramatically. So wheat prices go up, it makes food more expensive. But on top of that, Russia also provides a lot of things like uranium, rare earth metals, nickel, important materials for making electronics, electric cars. When sanctions were put on Russia, that supply stopped. Similarly with Ukraine, that very, very big rare earth metal market. So when things like, and also fertiliser, Russia produces, I think, 15% of the world's fertiliser, which might sound like, so what? But any fertiliser that's taken out of the system means that fertiliser costs go up. So if you're a farmer in New Zealand, you've got to pay more for your fertiliser, you've got to charge more for your food, and we, the consumer, pay more for it. And so we ended up, with the whole COVID situation and the Ukraine situation all happening quite closely together, we ended up with inflation. Inflation, everything gets more expensive. Interest rates have to go right up. People can't afford to buy houses.
Mortgages,
The housing market suffers. And the share market suffers because people were nervous. So they sell their shares, they move into cash. Interest rates are high, so they get better return on cash. A war a long way away can have a dramatic effect on us. We often talk about something called the small earthquake in Chile.
Yes, and I was just going to mention the earthquake that it's in the news at the moment. Myanmar?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But we talk about, in finance terms, we talk about the small earthquake in Chile, where something happens in Santiago, in Latin America. The port is taken out of action, the train system's damaged, no one's hurt, everyone's fine. But suddenly, copper, which is Chile's big thing, copper can't come to the market. So price of electronics goes up, price of building materials goes up, because the copper supply stopped. Just a small thing in an insignificant place over here can have a big effect elsewhere. So it's really interesting just how interconnected everything can be.
Exactly, and it feels like the world is so close to us. I mean, there was a time, I think, if we go backwards, I think for us it was difficult to know what was happening on the other side. It was just like through radio. But nowadays we are so much connected. Even
is easy.
Our video of today, so it's kind of traveling the world as you're talking.
Oh, it's instant. You can take a photo on your phone and tweet it, and 4 seconds later the whole world has seen
knows
it.
about it.
Incredible.
Exactly. And Anshul, Richard tried to cover much anyway, but in your own world, like when it comes to the housing market, does it have an direct effect, or it is just like an indirect effect?
I would say I don't think so it will impact. Means if we talk about real estate market in New Zealand, we are so far away. from all these countries. And what we usually see as well is what happened in New Zealand is when there was a war going on between Russia and Ukraine, the market was just stable. Not many people wanted to put their money in investment because they just didn't knew. And even the interest rate was so high. So indirectly it did impact it, but even at the same time, we sold record-breaking properties that month because people just because everyone was upgrading that time, because there was a whole make sense for people who have 2-bedroom property to get into the 3-bedroom properties, because first home buyers who have a budget of 400 or 500, they were just very keen to buy. So it's indirectly it impacted, but not huge impact, I would say.
Yeah. You're right. People have to make it work, don't
Yes,
they?
exactly.
They,
Yes.
you know, if people have another child and they've got a 1-bedroom flat and they've got to find a 2-bedroom flat.
It doesn't matter
they have
how
to do it.
how high interest rate is, what's the market doing, they just do it. Even if people who are downsizing, they're done with the gardens, they just want a peace of mind, small section, they will do it regardless what's happening.
That's it. Yeah, there are certain things, like housing, obviously the
Yes.
big one, but certain things that people will not do without. People will go without treats, they will go without trips to restaurants, they will do
Exactly.
without another car, but they can't avoid buying toothpaste.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
these things
Essentials, yeah.
are
Essentials.
always going to be in demand. So, and we find that with what we do, when things get really bad, people go for gold
Yeah.
because it's a safe haven, and sometimes what we call staples funds, where companies just invest in soap and washing up liquid and basic foods.
Yeah.
The sort of thing that it doesn't matter what happens in the
Yeah,
world,
exactly.
these things are people
Always
will
be in
buy,
demand
no matter
because
what.
that's what people need for their
people
day-to-day
can't,
survival.
you can't cut
Yeah.
back on these things. You can't.
Even on
use less
COVID
to-
time, you see all the supermarket was open and they
Yeah.
were working fine. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Necessities.
people's trolleys were still full of food.
Yeah,
People don't
that's
cut back
right.
on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thank you so much. The other part of the war is, of course, the one that we're talking about earlier in our conversation. We were talking about tariff, which Richard tried to cover. So tariffs does affect you world. We know that.
Yeah.
So moving a little bit further, when we are talking about warfare, what about competitions? Do you like? I'm not a businessman, so I wouldn't know. So you would be able to tell me, how do you take competitions? Do you take it like on the chin and it's kind of warfare, or you just behave normally and the better
you mean competition with sort of rival brokers?
rival brokers? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not warfare, because our industry is quite small. Everybody sort of knows each other, so it's all very decent and gentlemanly.
Because I heard in the news it was about the new parking company, I think, which is trying to come in the market.
The
new parking company.
Parking spaces.
Yeah, parking spaces. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
So they were the new competitor introduced in the market, and I think
That's
they got in
right.
trouble with some sort of legal suit.
Yeah, I mean, competition is quite good, but everyone has their own sort of speciality thing.
Yeah.
So there are cheaper companies than us who don't give us the same service. There are others who are more expensive than us. Perhaps, they cater for the really, really mega wealthy people. But there's it's rather like with the legal profession. There are some lawyers who are great for buying a house, but not very good with deceased estates, or some people that are great with business law, but not good with retail law.
It's kind
So
of becomes a bit specialized in their
Exactly.
experience.
So everyone has their own sort of niche. I suppose with our one, we're probably more of a personal service type company than some. We're smaller. We've been around for a long time, and we pride ourselves on actually having that face-to-face interaction with people. We're not online. We do have online presence,
we
but
do, yeah.
You don't
we're
do
not an
everything
online
online.
broker.
Yeah, which is good. I think for your business, we see a lot of things online. People are just too scared. Whereas if you have, like office presence, people are happy to come and see you.
Oh
and
yes,
invest.
yeah. I mean, I love it when people just pop in. So I'm thinking about investing. Is anyone available to chat? And just sit down with somebody who's got absolutely no idea of what to do, and then leave with some comfort as a little. Now I understand. That's very important, and they can do that with us.
Yeah, I think face-to-face meetings for me online. I mean, we do emails and stuff, and we do have Teams meeting. But at times I think face-to-face becomes an important meeting, because that's when you see, after you finish the meeting, you actually have that feeling that you know that person a bit better.
That's
Just
right.
like over here, we're talking to you, and if we are doing a video conference, it could be a little bit different.
And being able to actually go to someone's building, because there are so many financial scams around.
That's right.
There's so many online, online,
double your money. You see,
online real
Yeah.
estate agents.
Yeah.
You know, are they real? You know, are they
Yes.
actually an estate agent? You know,
Yes.
you don't really know. So there are a lot of scammers out there. So being able to actually come into an office
Yep.
and see a person and see that they are properly qualified, I think gives people a lot more peace of mind.
I see. And Anshul, when we talk about competition in your trade or your own industry, do you have any particular strategy, or you are just...
We see, as we say, there's always room for another agent.
There's a lot of real
There's
estate agents.
in Christchurch, let's talk about Harcourts itself. We have 550 agents just in one brand. And I think total licensed real estate person in Christchurch, in my opinion, would be 1,500 plus. And there is new agents coming every day. But I think in our industry, you just have to be better, and you need to understand your product, what the services you offer. Means we are not the discounted company. There are some companies who charge you 1%, 1.5%. We charge 4%, but we provide services. We have track record, and means competition wise, I think we love competition, because then the actual seller or buyer can differentiate us. That they have seen a discounted company and what they offer, and we charge them a little bit more, but what extra we can give. So I think in some ways it makes our job easier if we have a lot of competition. But yeah, with the competition, it's just we have to level up all the time and provide the best service.
Yeah, I think people don't mind paying for things, because the price is forgotten long after the value is remembered.
I've listed a property today. Elderly lady, she is selling 3-bedroom property in Bromley and moving to 2 bedrooms property somewhere in Linwood. She said, "Why should I pay you 24,000 where I have got an appraisal from another company and they're only charging me 15,000? Why shall I pay you 9,000?" And we say, "Look, that's a very interesting question. We sit down. I bring my pad and everything. Showed her the value. She said, "I'm happy. Let's get things underway." And she signed then and there. So people don't mind paying a little bit if you show them that there is a value in extra money.
That's right. Yeah, people. It's all about getting what you
services.
Getting that service. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly.
If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Yes,
So
that's right.
if
In our industry, is very much same. You pay bananas, you get monkeys, or same thing. And I said, "Look, that agent is charging you 15,000, but can they have this much of back power of managers? Sometimes things go to custard. Do they have enough people to manage? We have agents in our office or managers 40 plus years. You can't get that in anywhere else.
It's like with us, people can buy shares on their phone through shares.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they need to ask any questions about that share, if something goes wrong, they can't pop into Shares' office. They can't phone Shares. Shares is just a platform. They don't give any advice. That's why they're cheap.
I agree with that, and that's what actually we are trying to encourage people over here. If you do get a chance to receive advice, I think that'll be the best protocol. Same thing goes with any professional, especially if you can get it kind of maybe even the first consultation with no commitment. I think
it can make a huge difference. Particularly, I mean, a lot of people don't have shares, but a lot of people have a KiwiSaver.
Yes, that's an investment,
and which is basically going to have shares in it. Yeah. So if people, when they start work, if they can get the right sort of KiwiSaver at the beginning, it can make a colossal difference when they reach retirement. Because if you buy a bad fund and then don't do anything about it, you won't have a great deal of money when you retire. If you get the right fund, you could have an awful lot more. And when it comes to retiring, you want a big pot rather than a small one. So.
Exactly. I think that's when this face-to-face discussion does come in play. Because when you are kind of talking to someone on the phone, or someone is giving you lots of information and you have to power through and read through, I think, and then people just put it off for some other day.
It should be something that's taught in schools. Why you should, how you should pick a good KiwiSaver. Why credit cards appear to be great but are actually very, very expensive. How do you buy a house? How do you negotiate pricing? These are things that you're not taught at school. But the skills that you need when you actually go out into the world. So there's definitely a gap there. I'd love to get in front of every single school, sixth former in Christchurch.
Then and there,
Just say, when you get your KiwiSaver, buy a growth fund, and they're end of the lesson.
No, there are many things that I think people after graduating do come into this actual practical world, and they do realize certain things that you are not taught. I think one of the major ones would be how do you collect fees from your client.
That's right. Yeah, when I left school, I had no idea how to pay a bill.
Mm.
I knew lots of things about history and geography, but I didn't know how to pay a bill.
Yes.
So
Those kind of things. So there are many, and we can talk for hours when we go to that discussion. But coming back to our warfare, so we've kind of more or less talking about today, what's happening in the world today and what's going on. But Richard, I think when we talk about a bit of history, you go quite kind of, you're very fascinated. So I think we're trying to discuss. Was like this warfare really that much relevant in previous years? Like if we go back to the other century or even go back 1800s, those days.
what, the relevance of today compared to then?
Yeah, relevance to today or relevance to outer world at that time, or every country was
Yeah.
kind of more like on their own.
Warfare is always about, of course it's going to be a big question, it can be down to religion, it can be ideology, it can just be a simple resources grab. Did Putin invade Ukraine because he wanted to get rid of all the Nazis? Or is it because Ukraine had an awful lot of rare earth minerals? Did he want the Black Sea ports? Maybe he was trying to maybe there was something ideological about it, but usually there's a financial element. But previous wars, if you think about World War II, Hitler's ambition was to grow his empire by taking other lands from other countries. World War One, that was all down to the assassination in the Balkans. But again, the whole world was kind of on the cusp of it anyway. You had all these. The idea was to have so many big armies that no one would ever attack each other, but that idea is just nonsense. Because if you've got big militaries, they're going to be used. Today, it really is a very, very worrying time because the days of East and West are gone. We've now got various factions breaking out from each other. What are China going to do about Taiwan? We don't know.
Yeah, at the same time, I think India
Would anyone stop?
Thinking about ourselves now.
That's it.
Whether we should put more money and get ourselves prepared for.
That's right. Would Russia go further? Would they take Ukraine and then go into Poland? Would America stand back and watch? Would America invade Canada, or take Greenland, or Panama? There's just so many variables at the moment. But every time it's all to do with some benefit for somebody. America don't need Greenland for the space. They want it for the minerals. Simple, really. They want Panama so they can control the canal. Canada, again, lots of oil. So it's there's usually a financial
Interest.
usually a financial element. Cynical of me.
And I see. And going to Anshul, since you are from India, and we hear a lot about riots happening in country like back in India. When you were back in India, when there was kind of riots, how does that affect business over there, or is it like a usual thing that happens and people go on with doing the business?
We see when any sort of riots happen, and you say of 1995 riots in New Delhi, what happened there, it does affect businesses because then things go very quiet. People want to save their life before they do any business. So if you talk about the history in Mumbai attacks, we had a terror attack in the 5-star Taj Palace Hotel. So the whole city was shut for 5-6 days because they were still they were trying to find the terrorist. So it have a huge impact, but vary for certain time, like for limited time. I would say if something happened today, in 3-4 days everyone will forget about it because it's such a huge big population, almost 2 billion now. They can't just stick with the problem and cry for it. So things move very fast.
I think the same thing we saw when COVID was around.
Exactly.
India was kind of bouncing back and trying to go on with their life, whereas New Zealand were of course trying to save our population.
It's interesting different approaches. But you talk about the terror attacks in India.
So that was quite a big, and it impacted a lot of families. There were around 180 staff were injured in in that hotel itself while it was working, and the whole 2-kilometer radius business was shut because the other business doesn't feel safe to operate around that hotel. But after 5 days everything was normal. life have to move on.
Yeah, I mean, over in Europe, we've always had issues in Ireland, where the Catholic population in the south, the Protestant population in the north. It's been a source of tension for a century, but the effect it has is because there was always this tension. There wasn't perhaps a great deal of investment in Ireland because people were nervous that the situation was always volatile. Once things calmed down, they had an agreement in 1998, which I wouldn't say it stopped it, but it certainly got things settled. Ireland started to boom. They called it the Celtic Tiger, where certain companies were going to Ireland because they had lower tax rates. So they've got big American companies, big European companies with headquarters in Ireland. And Ireland is actually remarkably well off. It's gone from being a relatively not forgotten, but relatively ignored sort of country from a business perspective into a major powerhouse now.
Yeah, and then they're performing much better in rugby as well. I'm not so sure about cricket, but they're doing quite well in rugby. Anyways, I think we are almost to our time, reaching our time for today's session. And closing up, we'll give it to Anshul. So if you could let us know what do you think is bound to happen in the next few months? What's the deal with the market?
In my opinion, the market will be very stable in next 3 months' time. Again, it's a very good time for first-time buyers because if you wanted a property in certain suburb, there are options. After 3 months, when market will go up, they might not have any options in the suburb which you really wanted because everyone will jump in and want to buy. So great time to buy. Talk to a mortgage broker, then come to us and we'll help you to buy and secure a property.
And does the end of financial year have any major impacts on?
You see the big players like big investors and everything, I think they are a bit quiet in April and more towards the winter because they've already spent the budget for this year. So you will have very less competition, but in terms of market itself, is generally very healthy.
I see. Thank you so much, Anshul. And going to Richard, just to close up. So would you be suggesting that it's still a good time to invest? If people want
always,
to save for their future, I guess.
Yeah, always. I mean, if you pick the right sort of investment, then because shares are a long-term thing. Occasionally you can make money very, very quickly, but you always need to look at shares as being a long-term thing. It's all about spending time in the market rather than timing the market. If you try and catch the highs and lows, you'll generally not do it. But if you put your money in and then just leave it, you should be fine.
And are you also responsible for giving those scary news to people? Do you tell them how much they need for retirement? Is it kind of part of your role?
Yes, that's always a nice conversation.
So you're that...
we Massey University do some research on this, and they say that in New Zealand for a couple living in town, so for example in Christchurch, they really need to have a pot of money equivalent to approximately $1 million.
Saved in the account?
Saved. Yeah. Now that 1 million can come from any source. That can be part KiwiSaver. Perhaps they could downsize a property, some cash savings, or some other assets. But generally, $1 million will see you with a relatively comfortable retirement. You can have a much more basic retirement, but you're still going to need a substantial amount of that. Probably at least sort of $600,000-700,000.
So people, if they want that, I think people who are in their 30s, 40s, is the right time to invest.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, if they're saving 3% of their salary into a balanced KiwiSaver, they should probably think about saving more into a more aggressive growth fund, and get that money working as hard as possible. Which is why it's so important for youngsters to be buying a very good growth fund from the start, because they need that money to work hard. And let's face it, it's got 40 years to do it. So,
but at the same time, I'm thinking you're saying $1 million now, but in 20 or 30 years time, would you be saying the value of the buying power of the dollar is fallen now?
Well,
$2 million.
It depends on inflation, of course, but £1 million won't be worth very much in 30 years' time.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, I think that was a good closing statement. We are closing with a $1 million suggestion by Richard. So that's what you need to have for your retirement. Well, if you're thinking about it, it could be a bit late for some people. But if you have time, then something for you to consider, because that's a harsh reality of today. And I think even our culture too, we are also have not
same thing
fend for ourselves, so we can't be relying on our younger generation to look after us.
Yeah.
So we have to look after ourselves. So we all have to think in that way, and that is more like a business series today. So we are more focusing on the practical aspects. So thank you so much for joining us in today's series, and we'll come back some other time with a similar series 007, and then we will know who we will be catching up with. But we try to bring all these businesses to give you the information and then show the faces to you. And both these gentlemen, they are happy to meet you in their own office if that's what you are looking for. Otherwise, a phone call will do. But everybody, I understand, have their own ways of dealing with other people. So you can pick up your choice. The reason for this series again is to pass on the information. So there are readily available information out there for you, and we have contacts with other business professionals if you ever need those. And just don't feel as if you have nowhere to go. And that is the message that we are trying to pass through this series. So thank you so much once again for joining Jalsa Fiji Radio. I'll be signing off now. I'm the Programs Director Vinesh.